Being from the Midwest, we would always see snowstorm babies about 10 months, 9 to 10 months later. And I think we're going to see a lot of those with COVID. And there's a lot of prep that you can. Hey, Facebook, it's Sarah McLeodry from Synergy Behavior Solutions. Welcome to our talk today about dogs and babies. We are talking about this because we've had a huge upswing in inquiries from clients who have babies on the way. We're going to dub those our COVID babies. Being from the Midwest, we would always see an upswing in new babies about 9 months after a large snowstorm. So I think we're going to see that too with our COVID babies, except they're going to be over a much longer time period. There's a lot of prep that you can do before your baby comes. It's not like you don't know that you're pregnant. The baby doesn't magically arrive all of a sudden one day. And so it's really important to do some upfront work with your pets to help them feel more comfortable with a baby's arrival. The biggest thing is that most people's dogs are their number one babies, and they are used to having all of the attention and being a part of the family all the time. So it's really a big shift for a lot of dogs to deal with why now they have this new buddy in the house that they really didn't sign up for. So what can we do to help them be more comfortable? I think most people have heard about, playing baby sounds and thinking about those kinds of things from a big perspective of how to help their dog. But that's just one small fraction of the things that you can do to make sure your dog is comfortable with a baby arriving at your house. So a couple of things that we think about always is the stuff. So babies arrive with lots of stuff. There's high chairs and there's car seats and there's bassinets and bouncy seats and toys that make noise. And so that's an easy thing to start desensitizing your dog to before the baby arrives as people start gifting those items to you. Don't hide them away in a closet. Start putting them out in your environment where you would normally keep those items once the baby does come. Start practicing carrying that car seat to and from your car. First of all, it's good practice for you to not forget the baby in the car, which does happen. I'll never forget my pediatrician talking to me about that when I had my son. It does happen, and it's not because people are malicious. It's just a new part of their routine. So if you could make that part of your routine before the baby arrives, that's great. It also gets your dog comfortable with seeing that car seat coming in and out of the house, which is a great help. So also toys that make noises. Baby toys make weird noises. If you have a dog who is sensitive to beeping, buzzing, anything like that, being aware of what toys that come into your house, what noises they make, and do you want those toys even in your house? Do you want to take the time to train them with your dog, or do you just maybe decide that you're not going to have those types of toys in your house? You can make that decision. Sometimes there's training and sometimes there's management. And management in that case would be not having the toy in your house. So something else to think about. The other thing I want to think about is separation. So we really want to we see a lot of problems when dogs come home or when babies come home to a dog's house is that dogs aren't used to being separated. And a baby should never be left unattended with a dog, period, end of statement. It is not my dog will never do that. Things happen and things happen in an instant, and it can have deadly consequences. And nobody ever thinks it's going to be their dog that does something to their baby. That's not what people are doing. You are sleep deprived. You have a new baby. You have lots of stresses. So separation is key. But you can't just expect your dog, who has a new thing in its life, this noisy, loud baby, to be comfortable being separated if they weren't comfortable being separated before the baby arrived. So that is something that you can so clearly work on before the baby comes. There's a couple of different ways to work on separation and really playing with what works best for your dog and your household really is going to take some time. So that's another good reason to start working on it ahead of time. One of my clients lived in a townhome, so multiple stories with pretty open staircases, though, that the dog could see out of. The dog loved to lounge on the staircase. So instead of having separation on the first floor, what they actually did, because they had a very open floor plan, it was actually challenging to make some separation down there. They put baby gates at the top and the bottom of the stairs, And that's the dog's preferred lounging place before the baby even arrived. And so the dog was much more comfortable lounging on the stairs, being contained there, than being separated in other ways in the house. So that was a great way to take a pre-existing situation and a dog who already liked to be there and working with it instead of against it. The other place that I like to see separation is putting up a gate. If your baby is going to have their own room and they're not going to co-sleep with you, then making sure to put a baby gate at that nursery door and start working on the dog staying out of the nursery while you're in it. And this is great practice and easy to do while you're cleaning in there, you're painting, you're prepping, anything like that. You can close that gate and keep the dog out of the nursery and set up new rules around that room in the house. We have a lot of clients where that new room maybe was the dog's room. Maybe it was an office before. The dog's used to hanging out there. So all of a sudden we change the rules. We need to go ahead and make that really worthwhile for the dog. So if you're going to be in the nursery painting, let's say, give the dog a Kong on the other side of the gate and let them hang out. Do that every day for a little bit. Go in there and read, do something. Just have it so that the dog has a positive association with being on the other side of the gate while you're in the nursery. The other thing we want to think about is if you are going to have a bassinet or co-sleep in your bedroom and your dog is used to sleeping with you, all of a sudden magically having your dog not in the bed is not going to fly with your dog. They are not going to be happy with that situation. Dogs like beds because they're comfy. That's why they sleep in them, and they like to be by their people. So all of a sudden we have new whiny, cryy, weird smelling thing in our house, and you're not allowing me on the bed. This is not cool from the dog's perspective. So we really want to think about what can we do to set that up for success before the baby arrives also. So clients have done a number of things. Some clients have made decisions that the baby is not allowed in the bedroom at all, or not the baby, the dog is not allowed in the bedroom once the baby arrives. And so they just shut the door, don't allow the dog in, make sure that the dog is happy and comfortable, set them up in a new location to hang out overnight. Some clients decide maybe to bring the dog's crate back into the picture. And if the dog was initially crate trained, going ahead and crating them at night so that they have control over that situation. And one client who had a very large bedroom and the dog was not super comfortable being crated, they actually set up a large X-pen area and penned the dog into a particular spot in the room, made that dog's super awesome space with lots of treats and fun, and made it really worthwhile to have the dog hang out there instead of on their bed. Our biggest concern with dogs in the bed, if you have a bassinet next to your bed, is it puts your dog usually above the baby's height and really gives them access to a baby that they wouldn't have if they were on the ground. The other issue is if you are co-sleeping, there is the chance of falling asleep and the dog being there, baby maybe waking up, kicking the dog, things like that. It really sets up a situation for a reactive, redirected bite that the dog might not even be aware it's the baby. So those are all the reasons we want to keep the dog and the baby out of the bed together. And it is a big change for most dogs. They like sleeping in our beds with us. So definitely thinking about that. Once when I had my child, my dogs did not sleep with us at night. My dogs are allowed to hang out on our bed when we are present during the day and even like as we're getting ready for bed, but they do not sleep in the bed with us. And so that was an easy way to control the on and off situations with the bed. The other thing we talk about is, so I just said how dogs should never be left unattended with a baby. And then we have to go to the vet with the dog and the baby is strapped into the car seat and the dog is in the back seat with the baby. And it's something that people don't think about, but it's super important to me that before your baby arrives, you need to think about how can I safely contain my dog to not have access to my baby while I am driving. So if you're busy driving and all of a sudden your dog maybe is sitting next to the baby and the baby reaches out and grabs an ear and the dog reacts, that is not supervision. You are not able to control that situation. So thinking of how can I keep them separated in the car? There's a number of solutions. It depends on the size of your vehicle. But if you have enough room, I definitely would encourage you to crate your dog in a crash tested crate. is the safest way to contain your dog. I personally have a gunner crate and a rough tough crate. Those are really excellent crate choices. The other options too are to have using a seatbelt harness, but once again, making sure that that seatbelt harness is crash tested. Do not take the manufacturer's word for it that it is safe. The best one out there that I have used is the Sleepy Pod harnesses, and those have been crash tested, and they are sturdy enough to hang on to your dog while something happens. So you might have to think about, if you have a small vehicle, might have to think about being able to safety belt your dog into the front seat instead of in the back seat, so that your child does not have access to grab that baby. I also think about just babies with mushy food on their face and stuff, and dogs being able to lick them and have access to them that way. It's just not safe in a car while you're trying to focus on driving. I will say that driving with a child in your car is probably the most distracting thing ever, way more distracting in my mind than a phone or a radio or anything like that. It is really hard to stay paying attention to the road with a baby and having that being separated with your attention to, is my baby safe and am I safe driving? So if you know that the dog is not bothering the baby, that's a huge other important thing to think about. I did upgrade to a minivan when my son was going to be born. And I always said I was never going to be a minivan person, but guess what? When you have multiple dogs and a baby and a husband who uses a wheelchair, you need a minivan. It was just a fact of life. So while I was pregnant, we did upgrade, and it was the best decision ever because I have enough space for my dogs to safely be crated in their gunner crates while they're being transported anywhere. And I didn't have to worry that my son was going to have a problem with the dogs while we were driving. The last thing we like to think about is we really strongly recommend that every dog before a baby arrives be introduced to a basket muzzle. Hopefully you won't need it. Hopefully your dog will be fine. Things will be great. You won't need to muzzle your dog. But knowing that that is an option for safety is great. It gives you a peace of mind. I especially recommend them for dogs who live in open floor plan situations where you can't easily gate or crate your dog away. The muzzle gives you a way to have more flexibility of your dog being out and not having to worry about your dog biting your child. That said, the muzzle does not give you permission to put your dog in a situation they are not trained or emotionally ready for. It is a safety device that backs up in case something goes wrong. And it is something that we do recommend introducing it, at least introducing to your dog beforehand. Muzzle training can be taught very easily, positively. Dogs can learn to love their muzzles, but you have to do it well. You can't do it in a panic situation of you've come home from the hospital, your dog has snapped at your baby, and you slap a muzzle on them. That is not the way to muzzle train your dog for a baby. So those are a couple things that we like to think about that are a little outside the box of the normal baby prep stuff. Like I said, most people just think about baby noises, baby smells, things like that. Those are really important also. But thinking about the bigger picture, thinking about all that stuff that's going to be in your house now that makes noises, that has smells, that is just weird. It takes up more space in your environment. Dogs like space to distance themselves. So all of a sudden, if you have all this stuff in your house, it changes the way that they can distance themselves from a stressful situation. Then thinking about what am I going to do in the car to keep my dog and baby safe? Besides just the dog accidentally maybe snapping at the baby, the other reason you want to contain your dog in the car is that if you hit the brakes hard or are in a crash, you have a projectile in your car that could hurt your child who is in their car seat. So that's another reason to always contain your dog in the car safely with a crash tested item. I cannot stress that enough. And then the last thing to think about is do some proactive muzzle conditioning before the baby arrives. Like I said, hopefully you won't need it, but it's always better to have that as a skill that you have to use if needed. So I hope it's given you some ideas of what to think about before a baby arrives. Like I said, we've had lots of new babies coming from existing clients, new clients. And so the other thing to think about is before that baby arrives is contact a training professional. If you don't have other extending behavioral issues, you hopefully can just contact a well-trained dog training professional to help you out. But if you do have a known human-directed reactivity or other separation anxiety, things like that, then definitely contacting somebody like us, Synergy Behavior Solutions, over here in Portland, Oregon, to see if we can help you set up a successful plan before that baby arrives in your house. Like I said, babies don't arrive overnight, so good planning makes for a much more smooth transition to that baby arriving. If you have any questions or thoughts regarding new babies coming, please feel free to leave them in our comments. We'd gladly answer them later, and we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.